Hi you guys, Sarah Pacaro here. This video today is going to be about 9 different ways that childhood emotional neglect affects, influences, and impacts highly sensitive people or HSP people, where that label even comes from, and then what to do about it. So if you are someone who identifies as a highly sensitive person, there are things that just set you off, and they're seemingly illogical things. You don't understand why they do, but your sensitivity to emotions are really, really high. This video will highlight 9 ways that your upbringing, your childhood affected and influenced that. So everyone, every single human on this planet is affected by their childhood environment, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and generally it's a combination of both. But for highly sensitive people, this impact becomes amplified. That's why the word highly in front of sensitive people. We can all be sensitive at times, but highly sensitive people, this effect is magnified, is amplified, and there are studies and research that say that highly sensitive people suffer more in bad environments, but do especially well in good ones. Well, duh, that makes sense. So it may be really, really difficult for HSPs or highly sensitive people to keep or maintain a job long term because, right, there's a manager, there's a boss, or there's someone above them, and they are constantly triggered by that person. So it's reasonable to expect that childhood emotional neglect has an effect on very, very sensitive children, right? Because their feelings weren't nurtured, weren't given the time and attention that they needed and deserved to be expressed in a safe way. So not everyone who identifies with being a HSP or a highly sensitive person deals with emotional neglect will face all of the 9 things that we're going to cover today. But you may see that you are more aligned to connect with one area than another. So we're going to go over the 9 different ways that childhood emotional neglect harms, affects, influences highly sensitive people. So if you're a highly sensitive person, continue watching this video. You more than likely will sit there and check off the boxes and say, yep, this many out of 9. And then we're going to get into what to do about it. So make sure that you stick around. So the first one is that the high sensitivity becomes a joke with friends, with parents, with siblings. It becomes a joke. You, as the HSP or the highly sensitive person, react or respond to a situation by crying or by leaving or by having a panic attack, and the other people involved or other parties involved say, oh my gosh, it was just a joke. Look at you. This is ridiculous. I can't believe that you're crying over this. I can't believe you're making such a big deal about this. So the highly sensitive or the high sensitivity, the reaction to it becomes a joke, even with parents, even if you have loving, kind, caring parents who did, support you and raise you in a normal environment, were there for you. But comments like that the child or that you are too sensitive or, don't know how to take a joke, come across as a negative judgment. And those negative judgments and words become connected and attached to that inner, deeply rooted belief that you, as the HSP, have, that there's something wrong with you. So that's one of the first signs. The second sign is that if you have siblings, you have one personality type, your siblings have another. You take a look at a family that has, any number of siblings, and you see that all the siblings are very, very different. So you're going to have some people who nothing seems to bother them, even though you're raised under the same roof and in the same environment. And, another child within that dynamic, and it seems like everything bothers that child. And that may be labeled or deemed the highly sensitive one. And brothers and sisters or siblings are generally suffering from emotional neglect as well, but they may seem to more easily have tough skin or thick skin, or are the ones who like naturally toughen up, right? When they say, come on, just toughen up. I was kidding. I was joking with you. And it may not seem to bother or influence them. It may seem to like roll off their back. But for you as the HSP, you have no idea how it does that, because you seem to be the sponge, the one who soaks all of it up, and it significantly influences you. You think about a sponge that has soaked everything up. It's a lot heavier than a sponge that hasn't soaked anything up. So your sibling seems to be the one that's like nice and dry and, didn't soak any of that negativity up and isn't carrying the weight weight and the burden of it, while you just seem to soak everything up, even the stuff that bounces off of them. It's like, what was going on? So in this regard, it makes it more difficult for the HSP to climb up the ladder, so to speak, in this pecking order, of things that don't bother or influence them. So not only are you influenced by the caregivers, you're also influenced by the siblings around you who don't seem to be bothered by the same emotional neglect that you are, or the jokes as you are. The third thing that you'll feel or you'll notice is the HSP is their thoughts. They're constantly ruminating. They're constantly going back to reevaluating, what did this person say? I can't believe they said it like that. What is that? I mean, they said they were joking, but honestly, like, they said it like this, and I don't really think it didn't sound like they were joking. It certainly didn't feel like they were joking, but they said they were joking. And I just can't seem to connect with it being taken as a joke. So what's wrong with me? HSPs and highly sensitive people have this belief that there's something wrong with them, and they can't connect the dots. They can't figure out the pieces and how they connect when no one else seemed to be bothered by that. Everyone else was laughing and having a good time, and I didn't think it was funny at all. So there must be something wrong with me because I didn't see the humor. I didn't see the joke in it. And there's no limit to how many hundreds of millions of thousands of times that a highly sensitive person will have this thought, gosh, there's something wrong with me, and feel that they just don't seem to fit in anywhere. High sensitivity to children who are raised in a neglectful environment is sadly normal, and it becomes normalized. It is really, really difficult to get away from internalizing that there's something wrong with you if you are told over and over and over again, or made to feel like you're the odd one out and no one else took it the way that you did, and to internalize and believe and feel that your emotions are not right and that they don't matter because no one else seems to be reacting that way. So it's really hard as the HSP in an environment where you're raised with emotional neglect to believe that your emotions are valid, or to feel that it's safe to express them, because you always feel like the oddball out, and you're internalizing consistently that your beliefs, that the belief there's something wrong with you and your emotions don't matter, and that they're not right, that they're wrong. The emotions that you're having are wrong. So no wonder your mind is constantly telling you, well, there's something wrong with you. Look, here's the evidence. You're over here alone reacting like this, overreacting, and everyone else is over there and they've moved on with it and they're having a good time now, and you're still hurt by this. The next thing that you'll notice is that HSPs, or highly sensitive people, have significant confidence issues. I mean, this is kind of, a no-brainer, but you may think, you know what, no, I'm really confident. Like I'm a lot better when I'm out with my friends and not when I'm with my family. But even when you're with your friends, the difference is you can pretend more with them. You can kind of put this mask on and be this certain person, or if you're involved in certain organizations or communities, you can pretend to be this person, and you go out into those environments, and what's actually occurring is that you're wearing a mask of confidence, but internally, unconsciously, deeper, you really don't feel very confident. It's no surprise that a highly sensitive person can be in that environment and seek it oftentimes to get away from what's normal and to pretend to not be that way in that environment. But emotionally neglectful environments and upbringings often lead to this, and see this as a weak spot, because if they kind of catch any wind of it, they'll say, well, you're not that way with your friends. You're not that way with when you're doing that. So why are you that way with us? And then pressure the child to be more confident. Well, why are you not like that when you're playing basketball? You seem to be so confident and so good, but then you come home and you're just this weak little baby, right? So there will be pressure to be as confident as you are in that environment at home, but really in that environment, you have created this almost alter ego, or this different persona, in order to survive in that environment and not have the same experience in the home environment as you do there, because you're trying to get away from it. Obviously, it doesn't feel good emotionally. And when that occurs, there's no validation of the child's strengths and the child's feelings, because there's a significant lack of confidence in themselves. So that's another thing that occurs. They often also, as well, have a really difficult time dealing with criticism. So highly sensitive people in general react strongly to criticism, even the tiniest bit of criticism or feedback, right? Even if it's meant to be positive, let's say in a work environment, as an adult who's HSP, it's feedback and it's meant to be helpful, constructive feedback, but it's received as criticism. And an HSP reacts very, very strongly to criticism or to feedback. And it, again, just sends in this downward spiral. If an HSP, well, I can't say if, because HSPs were in an environment when they were being raised that was emotionally neglectful, they didn't feel safe to express their feelings, then they never had the experience of receiving feedback in a positive way, in a constructive way, in a way that was meant to help them grow and help them learn and help them develop and help them improve. Any kind of feedback was received as negative, as a detrimental part of their character traits or their identity or their personality. So it was all personalized and it was all internalized. So naturally, they can't develop healthy ways to deal with criticism if they never saw it modeled or never experienced it when they were growing up or at home, especially coming from the people they looked up to the most, right? Parents or siblings. So the next thing that you'll notice is that they experience overwhelm. HSPs get very, very overwhelmed easily. They get exhausted. They feel it emotionally. It expresses physically. Maybe you're always tired. Maybe you could sleep for 20 hours a day. They experience significant highs and lows and crashes and panics and anxiety attacks, panic attacks. Almost all HSPs can become overstimulated by really loud environments or busy environments. They don't like going out to places where it's really, really loud or there's a lot of people, because they can be so quickly and so easily overwhelmed by this huge tsunami of waves of emotions at any time. And generally, majority of them, right, are aware of this and will avoid environments or situations like that and have some sort of, self-care routine or ritual or mechanisms that they use, maybe that they learned from a counselor or therapist or something like that. But that is something that they will experience. And when they're still under the roof of or connected with their parents, then they will typically be seen by the parent or by others as overreacting, because suddenly if you're the HSP in an environment where it's louder or busy or there's a lot of people and you get that huge wave of emotion come over you and you react to it, no one else is, and they can't seem to understand what's wrong with you. What are you doing? Whoa, you were just fine a second ago. What's going on? And then they may get angry at that person because it seemed to come out of nowhere and they're freaking out, or they'll attach labels to it. And this can make that sense of panic and fear and overwhelm feel even worse and become even more magnetized in that situation, which obviously doesn't help it at all. The next thing to notice is that the HSP can experience a significant, profound sense of loneliness, even in a room full of people, when they have this belief, which they do, that their emotional needs don't matter and no one seems to understand them and no one else gets it, then they quickly feel isolated, alone, and abandoned in the world. And they feel like, there's almost 8 billion people on this planet, but they feel like no one understands them, no one else gets it, no one cares. So with those feelings and those thoughts and those beliefs, they feel a significantly profound feeling of loneliness. And with that, you don't want to put yourself out there. Why put yourself out there? Because you feel like if you do, you're just going to get even more hurt. And you're already experiencing so much emotional pain that you don't want anymore. And so you don't do that, right? You're not going to go knowingly and willingly do things that are going to cause you to feel pain. So this leads to number 8. They can feel stuck. They can feel really, really stuck. They can feel blocked. They can feel that they don't even want to reach out and ask for help, because children who are raised in an emotionally unavailable or emotionally neglectful environment, they suffer from emotional neglect, and they learn it's not safe to ask for help, because if I work up and muster up the confidence to ask for help or to say that I'm hurting and I'm in pain, the help that I want and that I need is not going to be given, because I'm just going to be told that I'm weak or I'm a baby or get over it. So I'm not even going to ask for help. I learned to not ask for help because it's not going to be given anyways, or I'm going to be seen as inferior or dumb or stupid. And this is significantly damaging, because you need help. You needed help when you were being raised. You needed help from your parents to learn how to process and express and work through different emotions in a healthy way, but that wasn't provided. And the HSP child raised in the emotionally neglectful environment learns to not speak up for their needs and believes that the world doesn't understand them. And so they internalize and bottle up and have these inner needs that are going unmet. And they can bottle up and just sometimes the top shoots off that bottle and they erupt in anger, they erupt in arguments or frustration, which further validates the other people in that experience to say, see, anytime I do try to talk to you, you blow up, you go off. Like, what's the point of even trying to help you or talk to you, because you're just going to go off on me. And so that can lead to them feeling really, really, really anxious in all environments, in normal environments. I've had clients that I've worked with that have suffered from significant social anxiety, so much so that they felt anxious even thinking about going to the grocery store to get normal everyday items, even thinking about walking down the aisle. So the only time that they would go is when they absolutely had to, and B, like really, really late at night, when they knew there were not going to be a lot of other people there, so that they could get what they needed and then get in and get out and not have to engage or interact with any people. And they hated that, because that's not quote unquote normal from their description. They wanted to be able to go when they needed something and not like stew over it and not have a panic attack even thinking about going to do what's seeming, normal everyday things, like going to the grocery store to get food or, items for the house. But experiencing childhood emotional neglect and being a highly sensitive person, these are all factors that lead up to feeling significant and overwhelming amounts of anxiety and a belief that they're always doing something wrong. So there's research out there and tips out there about how to recover from childhood emotional neglect. We're going to cover some of those. They're going to feel like blanket statements, because they are, because it really, you can't just read a book about it and then be cured or be done. You really got to do the inner work. And when I say inner work, I mean the beliefs that you have, the unconscious beliefs that you have that are connected to those experiences of past emotional neglect. So it's not just saying, oh, I remember when, I was 5 and, my mom told me get over it, like after my brother hit me. It's much, much more than that. It's much deeper than that. But one of the steps to recovering from childhood emotional neglect, especially if you're an HSP or highly sensitive person, some of the common advice out there is get to know and accept yourself. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but I am laughing at that because most people that I work with say, how? I have no idea who I am. I don't know where I fit in. I don't know where I belong. I don't know who I am. So how in the world am I supposed to get to know myself and then accept myself? That here I am. And that seems like so far out there. So I don't even know where to start, because oftentimes they're numb from their feelings. They can't even identify their feelings. They are not even aware of their internal patterns, aware of their thought process, aware of their triggers. They just know that they're fine 1 second and then the next second they're losing it. So some common advice on how to heal from is get to know and accept yourself. But it's like, what? How? Where do I start? So no worries. There's a link in the description below this video that leads to my webinar that goes into this in even greater detail. So I get that. And I know that's so much easier said than done. Trust me, that's the process that I take people through healing every single day. So no worries if that's what you're thinking right when I said that. The second thing is, and here's a big one, accept. You're like, accept. I don't want to accept that I feel like this. But the next step would be to accept your feelings, accept your needs, and accept your wants. and accept that they matter just as much as everyone else's. And again, easier said than done, right? Because you are probably a person that finds it really easy to put other people's needs above your own, and you're down here and everyone else is up here. And that makes sense because you've learned that, you've been taught that, you've modeled that your feelings, needs, and wants don't matter and that they're down here. But when you accept them as much as everyone else's, then you're on an equal playing field. Again, it takes the inner unconscious work, healing those inner unhealed wounds, healing, addressing, and attending to those unmet needs that are still inside of you. This is internal work. It cannot be done externally. You can try it, but you won't get very far very fast. And then the third and fourth step are to begin to express your needs. And oftentimes this is where people get stuck and blocked, because expressing is generally done verbally by saying what you want and need, but you have to first know what you want and need, identify it, and accept that you deserve to have those feelings, wants, and needs, and then start to express them. But you were raised in an environment where it was not safe to express them. So people who are recovering, or HSPs in recovery, or people doing the inner work to heal from childhood emotional neglect, they typically bottle up and hide their emotions or feel numb, and their emotions are walled off. So they can't even get to them, which makes perfect sense. It's almost like you've shut off and blocked off the walls to your heart because you're tired of the heartache and heartbreak and pain that you feel. So they may only express their needs when they feel so overwhelmed that they're going to lose it. And every other time they withdraw and pull back their feelings. So when you begin to live life through the lens of treating yourself as if you matter just as much as everyone else, this changes. But again, that has to be done. The vast majority of that healing has to be done at the unconscious or subconscious level, because that is the area within you which houses these belief systems, which holds them. And that's what needs to be broken through before any of this conscious work can even come in. So if you have only been working on it consciously by reading books or journaling or meditating or all of those things, chances are you're very, very limited on feeling like you're making any impact or that you're moving the needle in the right direction at all. Totally get it. That's why I've designed the Transforming Past Pain to Present Power. We both work in the unconscious part of your mind to break through that, shatter and release those inner unconscious beliefs, transform, reprogram, rewire, and change them, and also incorporate the conscious work so that all of that work that you're trying to do and the ways that you want to feel, and that becomes easy for you. It becomes easier for you to express your needs. It's not going to be easy in the beginning, right out of the gate, but with time, with practice, with repetition, it will become easier and easier because the mind learned by repetition. So it's going to get easier and easier each time you do it. It's going to be scary. It's going to be hard the first time you do it. But it's all going to lead to you on this beautiful divine journey where you practice self-soothing and you practice self-care, and it doesn't feel selfish to do it, and you don't get distracted or avoid it, because that is something that was really, really natural for you as a child. If you're someone who's an HSP and grew up in an emotionally neglectful upbringing, you probably had a really short window of that, but all children will self-soothe. I mean, look at babies who suck their thumb. That's a form of self-soothing. Probably don't suck your thumb now as an adult, but going back to those things that soothed us, that calmed us internally, that had us know that everything in the world is okay, and have us be at a state of equilibrium and a state of balance. That's a learned skill. And that's a skill that does come naturally, but because of the environment, because of the emotional neglect, because of the upbringing, was really, really short-lived. It was a tiny window. So going back to that and expanding it, and then having your belief system match with that so that you know that you were worthy of putting yourself into that safe, self-soothing state anytime you need it at all. So again, it is a practice. It is a journey that you need to go on. It is a commitment to yourself to do the inner work to healing. And if you don't even know where to start, that's okay. That is why I put together my Transforming Past Pain to Present Power program. You're going to find that you're doing work at the unconscious level to break through those limiting negative beliefs, to rewrite those old stories that are playing in your mind that are keeping you stuck today, especially if you are an HSP or if you were were raised in an environment that was emotionally neglectful or unavailable. So I'd love to see you inside of our group and inside that program. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to me, but you will find more information in the links in the description below this video. Until then, take care.